Hey guys, what's going on? Jimmy the Owl here, and welcome to a Supervive balance patch video. I'm going over this one mostly because Hudson got massive changes that completely change his playstyle, so we're just going to jump straight into what these changes are. For Hudson, his hover jets got changed from 2 stacks on shift to 1, and his cooldown got reduced from 13 seconds to 10 at level 1 and 11 seconds to 8 seconds at level 2, with his minigun getting changed from its base range being reduced from 1400 to 1300, and while spinning barrels is activated, it goes from 1200 to 1150. Base damage got a reduction of 30 to 27, and the AP ratio got a reduction from 8% to 5%. Bob Wyatt also got hit with some hefty nerfs, with the activation time being increased from 0.6 seconds to 1 second, as well as the activation range being decreased from 1400 to 900. Now, let's start with hover jets. I think this was a much needed change. I think removing the charge from hover jets definitely makes you have to think more. As much as I'm, as a Hudson player, not happy that he's been nerfed, because it's fun just diving in, killing everything, and leaving, it definitely needed changing. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, they nerfed Hudson, it's unbelievable. Just as a community move, Hudson needed nerfing in some way. So removing hover jets charges means that he can't safely dive in, kill an enemy, and dive out, or he can't chase down people, which isn't really his job. So I'm glad they've changed this, as well as a cooldown reduction, making it a lot more bearable to have one charge. I feel like this is a really good change to try and knock DPS, kill everyone Hudson off the radar. Minigun change is where I'm a bit conflicted. I don't think the range needed to be reduced at all, but I do agree with the base damage reduction and the AP ratio reduction, meaning that you can try and go more hybrid and tank over damage and not feel like you're missing out on too much. Barbed wire changes are definitely a kind of need. I feel like barbed wire is not doing its intended purpose. Barbed wire is supposed to stop people from entering your zone and entering the space made by you or your team that you are controlling. And with that, people were using barbed wire to stop enemies from leaving the space that you haven't even created yet. People were just hawking these things as far as they could go to try and catch an enemy that was not even in this controlled space that you had. So with that being said, reducing the range makes a lot more sense. These things are supposed to be used as a deterrent for engaging, not as a deterrent from disengaging. What I mean by this is it's supposed to stop Felix, Julie, Brawl, Jin from just flying in, killing someone and leaving. It's not supposed to stop the Felix, Bishop, Kingpin from backing up out of the space you haven't created yet. So barbed wire getting this nerf makes a lot of sense. Overall, the nerfs are fine. I just kinda wish we kept the range reduction for the next patch. If this wasn't enough with everything else, we could have nerfed his ranged, and then realistically there would be nowhere else to go from there without completely just destroying the character's identity and what he's supposed to do. Right now we're teetering on the edge. He's supposed to be a mid to long range controller who controls the space made by him, if he's made any, or his team like a Felix or a Oath, and control that space that is being made by his team to make sure no one can get in, and if they do, they can't just get out as easy. Right now, we're more of like a mid-range character now. We've moved away from being that long range. We can no longer peek the strike and try and put damage down on them with very little risk. Now we're risking getting a shot or two on us, peeking a strike, which is fine. But if we go any lower than this, we are literally bottom of the barrel, lowest control. We don't have anything. Because if we go any lower, we're going to start moving towards void level of range, and when we hit that sort of distance, we don't have anything that he has. We don't have a stun, we don't have an ult that can grab everyone, we don't have a way to make the team move and teleport. So we're a very selfish character. We can't really be having us go below mid-range, and we're currently like teetering on the edge of that. So no more reduction on range, please. Like it's fine now. I think this is too much of a reduction. but like we're sitting on an okay level, which just not touch the range anymore, and like kind of just the power that we're giving to things, which we've done as well. If this doesn't work and the community is still screaming at their rooftops, it's going to have to be another AP ratio reduction until he's literally only viable as hybrid or tank. Because right now, Hudson sits as a low elo to mid elo stomper, and when people start to pick up in like Diamond and Masters that like you can run Hudson down with a Jin, a Jewel, and a Brawl, just one of these things, and just circle around them, and he can't turn his minigun fast enough to hit you, you're in good hands. Like, you can beat a Hudson very easily. It's just like right now it's a low to mid elo stomper, and those people are not having fun against it, and they're not able to have a Jin, have a Brawl, have a Jewel that is able to understand how to dive a Hudson successfully, and that's just not fun. So I understand why the changes need to be made, and I'm not here to bash the changes. I just think reducing the range is not the move we need to be making in the aspect of making this a much more funner hunter to play against. Like I said, right now we're sitting on like rocking horse levels of okay, which is just not rock it any more than we have to. But overall, I do think these are good ones. And just to talk about the barbed wire changes again, I do think this was very much needed, and I'm glad we have changed barbed wire from being a hawk tour over there to stop people from getting away, and more of a limp throw to stop them from getting in. And yep, jets also needed that change from 2 to 1, so you couldn't just hover jet and chase people down constantly. That's not your job. This definitely hurts full DPS Hudson, but I'm thankful to say that it hasn't completely killed it. As you can see in the clips behind you right now, I played a lot of DPS Hudson today just to get a feel for it, to see how much of a hit it took. It definitely took a hit. It's not as brain dead as it used to be. You've got to think about when you're using your hover jets to disengage or engage with your full DPS, but it's still very much viable, which I'm happy to report, and I'm hoping it stays that way. I'm hoping these nerfs make the community back away from the nerf Hudson hate train they've been riding, and we can kind of get over the character as a whole. And I do plan on making a video about Hudson as a character, and if he is toxic and unhealthy for the game, and I'll leave that discussion for that video. So let's move on to Brawl. Brawl got changed. You got a bug fix on his flame step. I don't really know about this that much, but I think it's the one where level 3 dodging lets you build up passive stacks by dodging projectiles, and it was working when you dodged your own or allies, which is a good fix. This is the one that really did for me, that I'm glad they've done. Brawl right now in his current situation before this patch was a Viego of sorts. He would down someone, and when he downed them, he would wait a second, start fighting someone. If he started losing the fight, he would turn around, ult the Wisp, and then he would go invulnerable so no one could hurt him, no one could hit him, and he would gain a chunk of health back and instantly down the Wisp, giving him a 100% cooldown reduction on his ult so he could just go back into fighting and ult again if needed. It gave him that Viego level power spike where if you killed one enemy on Viego in League of Legends, you could run down the whole enemy team, and he was having that sort of effect by doing that with Wisps. So they've completely nutted that, and he only gets 25% of the max cooldown refunded, which I think is a very good change. But still keeping it so knocking an enemy down instantly to their death box still gives a full reset, but doesn't do it on minions anymore, which I didn't even know was an option. I didn't know killing a minion actually gave you the reset, so that's interesting. You can no longer jump while using it, which I didn't know that was a bug. But I'm glad they have fixed it so it doesn't heal him if he's anti-healed or within the outer circle, in the zone or whatever. They call it a death circle. I didn't know that it was doing it in the circle. I definitely knew it was doing when he was anti-healed, so I'm glad this change has gone through. I'm glad it was a bug and not an intended feature, because I knew it was doing it while he was anti-healed. There was many times as a Felix where I would grab him with my Q, and he would just ult, heal a shit ton, and then continue to kill everyone, and I was really annoyed by that. I was like, fucking anti-healed is pointless. But I'm glad that was a bug and not an intended move by the game. Moving on to equipment. Sadly to say, Amplifier has been changed. You can no longer build the Kingpin build where you infinitely dash and keep one-tapping people, because it's going to not take multiple versions of a move as being one move, and instead is going to classify them differently, aka Kingpin dash, the aerial dash, and the normal ground dash are two separate moves now, so Amplifier will not work its passive based on that. It will keep resetting it anytime you do one of the two dashes. The other thing I wanted to add to the Amplifier one, and this is more of a like community note, if anything, like I would like to know if this is a good idea or not. I definitely think it would be interesting to have it not affect your ultimate, where we could make more builds with this thing a lot more viable. Take Ghost, for example. I think Ghost would be a really good build to have the Q build also be able to cast his ultimate, giving him that extra power of play in the game to keep people away without having to reset his Amplify with a dash, and can instead create some space for himself with his ult. I don't know if anyone's using Amplifier for ult cooldown, which is why I'm I've always been kind of skeptical to bring it up. But like, is that a thing? Is people using Amplifier for ult cooldown? Is there a build for that? And if not, do you guys think that it would be worthwhile having it not affected by ults, and then maybe change it along the line if we have more characters that would benefit from that? It just feels really weird to me that like I'm stuck with no ult because I used Amplifier, and it takes a while, like for example Ghost, to get his stacks going with his Q in like the mid game and stuff. It's a bit easier in the later half, but like in the mid game it's really hard to get your stacks going, and it would be nice to be able to cast my ult to make it so I can make it to the late game to get the Q build really going off on one. But I would like to have like some feedback on that idea, because like I'm not really sure how well Amplifier is being used for any ult builds, if at all, and if it would ruin Amplifier at all to have it so it doesn't affect ultimates at all. Like I'm interested, and I feel like there should be some discussion there. Moving on to power user, it's no longer gonna soulbound exotic powers, which is fine. Mana Cloak is no longer going to have a cost of 10. It's going to be 30 mana a second while invisible, which is a good change. Power Shuffler has been disabled for now. I've seen this a couple of times. I've never really used it, and they're saying exotics are too prevalent and easy to come by, so they're removing this as a like way to control that for now. I'm not really sure if people were really using Power Shuffler. I am not really well versed in the item that much, so I'm just going to take their word that this is a good change on that and move on. Anyway, that was the balance patch of the 8th. We'll have to wait and see if the community kind of pipes down on the Hudson hate train and stuff and stops just yelling for nerfs anytime he does anything stupid. But we'll have to wait and see. I definitely do think these were good nerfs, and I'm happy that Fairycraft Games is really moving in the right direction of not nuking characters, but definitely controlling how they're being played when they're not being played in a favorable way. Like, for example, Kingpin Dash build, I didn't think was very fun or fair to play against, so they changed it. I don't think EPS Hudson should be able to dash in and out of fights as freely as he was, and they've changed it. So they are listening, and they are making the correct changes. Only time will tell if they can keep up this pace of making the right decisions. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.